In this video, I'm diving into and doing an update on one of my favorite projects, Akash, going into 2025. Akash is a crypto AI project that I believe still from here has the potential to 100x or more going into this bull run. Meaning today, the price of Akash is around $2.87. And I believe by the end of this cycle, we could see the price of Akash eclipse $200 and go as high as potentially $300 in price. And I know that sounds insane. I know that sounds wild. Let me explain why I believe that, why I believe it could go that high, and why I believe even today, at $700 million in market cap, it's extremely underrated. I'm also going to be diving into Akash's recent roadmap release. What was in it? What are they talking about? What's coming next? And why I'm really bullish on some of the points on that roadmap. Keep in mind, this is just my personal thoughts about a crypto project that I'm personally invested into, I personally hold, and I'm personally bullish on. None of this is investment advice. None of this is me telling you to buy these things. You should always do your own research and make sure you know what you're doing before jumping into any project. Akash is a crypto AI project that sits within the DePIN sector of crypto. And it's a marketplace of compute. Some people have called it the Airbnb of compute. And I've talked about before, compute is the lifeblood of AI. The more compute we can get, the faster, the more powerful compute we can get, the more ability we have to scale and grow AI. Also, it's not just AI that uses compute. It's quite literally everything today uses compute. From video games to AR, VR, literally everything today uses compute. In fact, some have described compute as sort of like the modern day oil. Everything runs off of it and we cannot get enough of it. Think of like the Industrial Revolution, and you needed these fuel sources to power the Industrial Revolution. Well, we're about to enter a new golden era when it comes to AI and all of these things, but instead of needing coal or oil or maybe steam to power this new golden era, what powers this new golden era is compute. And the reason we cannot get enough compute is because every time we scale up production of chips, or every time we come out with more faster, more advanced, compute, AI, these apps, and all these things just scale to take advantage of that new compute available. Basically, they become faster, better, cheaper. But again, it just kind of eats up that new compute resource that's put onto the market. Compute is becoming so integral to society that the CEO of OpenAI even floated the idea of universal basic compute instead of universal basic income. And that might seem kind of crazy, but it's not as crazy as it sounds. We're basically in a global all-out arms race when it comes to compute and electricity, and it's only going to scale further from here. That's why Nvidia has, recently climbed to insane heights. It's like stock prices climbed to insane heights, at one point becoming the most valuable company on the planet. Akash sits at the intersection of all this, and it's actually a solid and well thought out crypto project that's used by AI researchers globally and has received widespread recognition and praise outside of the crypto space. On the fundamentals level, it's seeing year over year more usage, adoption, and revenue, and the metrics have basically been up only. It's actually shocking that Akash doesn't see more attention given that most of the crypto AI space is basically vaporware. Akash has been called the Airbnb of compute, as we mentioned earlier. It's been called the Nvidia of crypto, and it's been called the AWS of crypto. And it's kind of a combination of all of the above. I personally like to call it the internet of compute. Decentralized permissionless networks carry a premium over their centralized counterparts. For example, a bunch of servers tied together doesn't carry much value. However, a decentralized permissionless network of servers carries a massive amount of value. It's today what we call the internet, which obviously we know the internet has created trillions and trillions of dollars of value. Or another example would be oftentimes blockchains are called just like giant spreadsheets in the cloud. And obviously a centralized spreadsheet if I controlled it and I had Jesse currency and I got to dictate who held what and how much it was worth, all that kind of stuff, it'd be utterly worthless. Like nobody would use this. The value of this money would be worthless and nobody would care about it. Contrast that with blockchains, which again, blockchains are just ledgers. They're just permissionless, decentralized ledgers. They're credibly neutral. No one person controls them, but they're essentially the same thing. We know they can be valued at trillions and trillions of dollars. Decentralized permissionless networks carry premiums over their centralized counterparts due to the property rights that they endow on the user. What's interesting is this is actually true across a whole bunch of things. For example, countries that have really strong property rights unlock abundant amounts of value compared to countries that don't have really strong property rights. So Akash isn't just a marketplace, but it's a decentralized and permissionless way to buy and sell compute, or as again I like to call it, an internet of compute. One that AI teams, AI models, and AI agents can permissionlessly build on top of. And every time I do a video on Akash, I kind of give these same examples, but I really think they're worth hearing out because once it clicks, you're like, wow, that actually is insane. If you think of Facebook, how many trillion-dollar companies have been built on Facebook business pages? The answer is zero. $0 trillion companies have been built on Facebook. In fact, way back in the day, you had companies like Zynga that tried to build on Facebook. They did build something really successful, but then Facebook ended up changing the rules, rugging them, and took away all that value. And if you contrast that to the internet, which is, again, decentralized, permissionless, credibly neutral, nobody can take away, if you build a website on it, nobody can take it away from you. There have been multiple trillion-dollar businesses built on the permissionless, decentralized, credibly neutral internet. Amazon built their trillion-dollar business on the internet, knowing that if they built this business, nobody could take it away from them. They had strong property rights. When they built this website, there was no like person that owned the internet that was like, oh, I'm going to shut down your website or I'm taking your website from you. They couldn't do that because it was credibly neutral, it was permissionless, and it was decentralized. Because Amazon had strong property rights on the internet, there was nobody that controlled it or owned it. It was a shared public resource, a shared public good. In the same way, I see a lot of AI agents, I see a lot of AI models, I see a lot of AI companies being built on a shared public resource like Akash versus being built on something like centralized corporate GPU clusters like OpenAI, etc. Think of, for example, the progression of computers. Originally, computers were like these massive things. It literally took up entire buildings. So to like build a computer that was basically just a calculator, you had giant buildings to house all the parts and all the things needed. But as time went on, computers got smaller and smaller and smaller and more powerful, to where today we have infinitely more powerful computers in our pocket. Like, and when I say infinitely more power, like the single calculator app on your phone is vastly more powerful than those computers that were an entire building back then. And I believe similarly, we'll see these giant data centers of GPUs massively condensed in size over time and spread out all over the place. And I envision Akash as this internet that connects all of that compute together, allowing anyone to permissionlessly tap into an abundant like ocean of compute, or if they have extra compute around their house or their business, etc., lend out that extra compute to the wider network. And this might be hard to imagine today, just like the internet, I'm sure was hard for people to imagine back in the 1990s. I believe in the future, we're going to see an entire universe of applications, open source AI models, AI agents, and more built on top of Akash. I think Akash has the potential, not that it will be, but I think that something like this has a potential to become an integral layer of society, like a public good similar to the internet, on which a lot of these really important things are built on top of. In fact, today we're already seeing this with an ecosystem of apps built on top of Akash, with AI models like Venice, Prime Intellect, Morpheus, Eliza, and more deployed on top of Akash. Akash is widely used today by machine learning teams, open source AI models, and more. And it's had over 279,000 leases on the platform to date. And I believe over time, as we have more innovation around GPU clustering, connecting GPUs together, we'll only see the usefulness of Akash grow. Now, I want to dive into the current roadmap for Akash. This just got released. There's a ton of new updates on what's coming and where they're going next that I really want to dive into because a lot has shifted since the last time I made a video about Akash. I also want to talk about my price target for AKT and how high I think it could potentially go this cycle. And spoiler alert, I'm obviously insanely bullish about Akash. But really quick, the Obsidian Council is my private research community where I share monthly research, my entire portfolio, buy and sell alerts whenever I buy into a project, and more. We've had projects go up 1,100%, 1,200%. 1,500%, and some much more. I spend a lot of money to access a variety of newsletters, private groups, and more so I can get the best alpha in the market. And I share that alpha with the members of the Obsidian Council. Currently, the Obsidian Council is sold out and closed to new members. But if you want to join next time it opens up, make sure to join the waitlist in the description of this video. Okay, so Akash just released a new roadmap and it's filled with a ton of coming upgrades, and we're going to dive into that. A lot of the things that are on this roadmap are really technical and they're not necessarily an interesting thing for me to cover in this video. So I'm going to skip through a lot of what makes up this roadmap because again, it's just not going to be interesting to most people. But I guess just generally, there's a lot of upgrades to UX, just making things more convenient, upgrading usability, scalability, all those kind of things. Some of the things that I think are interesting for the purposes of this video, they have plans to implement trusted execution environments, so TEEs, making it so that everyone that uses Akash can be assured their data will remain private. And I think this is really important for sensitive data and quite a few use cases that currently today cannot be done on Akash, but in the future will be able to. And this is actually a unique feature compared to centralized providers like AWS. With something like AWS, you mostly don't have this. Instead, you're basically trusting the brand Amazon isn't going to do something, scrupulous with your data. On top of that, Akash is implementing a buyback and burn feature, which is supposed to come later this year. Basically, Akash always wants to make it as easy as possible for non-crypto people to use their platform and their products, etc. And one of the things they do is they make it so that you can use a credit card and you don't have to pay with a Akash. But since they're not directly using Akash, there's a fee that's charged. And what they want to do is they want to take that fee and use it to buy back and then burn Akash, which again is supposed to be implemented later this year. And the last thing I think is worth highlighting in this video is they proposed a new concept called Akash at home. This basically aims to address future use cases with AI at home, or basically think of like private AI models. Imagine, as I kind of talked about earlier, that in the future, you're going to have AI models that are going to be hosted natively on devices rather than uploading to the cloud and, using OpenAI servers or whatever. They'll be doing native tasks on that device. A really easy way to think of this would be like self-driving, right? Like self-driving doesn't have the time to upload the information to a server and then like wait for a response. Like it's got to natively have its compute already within the car because, like you don't want what if it loses signal or something like that when you're like driving? You don't want that to happen with a self-driving car. You're also going to have private AI models that maybe like manage your day-to-day life, all your private information, maybe your health data, different things like that. Think of it like your own personal Jarvis or something like that. And imagine everybody has something like this and it knows your schedule, your health, your diet, your likes, your dislikes, your order history, your bank balance, your notes, your texts, everything. Obviously, you might not want that hosted on OpenAI's like corporate servers. You might want that to be extremely private. That might be really important to you. It would make sense to me if people have, like, imagine every household has this. It's going to operate off of your personal compute available in your house. But maybe for more complex tasks, it needs to occasionally tap into something like the internet of compute, which would, AKA Akash, where it's not owned by a corporation, it's not owned by this, private company, it's permissionless, it's credibly neutral, and maybe it's operating in the same TEE environment. So, your data's, private and secure. You have to understand that AI is rapidly approaching an intelligence that exceeds any human on the face of the planet. Within the next few years, AI is going to be better at doing just about anything you can imagine a human can do today. Only the top 1% smartest people on the planet are going to be better at doing these tasks than AI is going to be capable of doing. And even in that case, they're only going to be better at certain tasks. Within a few years after that, AI will be significantly better at doing literally every task on the planet, even better than the smartest humans on the planet. It'll be the age of miracles. Science, technology, like medical, everything is going to accelerate at a pace that we've never before seen in history. Just imagine every single problem we currently face in society today, but with like an army of these vast, super intelligent AIs that are just vastly more intelligent than us, working on those problems and trying to solve them and coming up with solutions. Basically, obviously, in the comic books, Tony Stark has this intelligence that's like superhuman, right? Like in reality, nobody's going to be building the things and doing the things he's doing. It's like a beyond reality level of intelligence. And basically, these AIs are going to be like real life Tony Starks that are working on every problem humanity faces today. And the result, in my opinion, is we're going to do things that today we would consider like almost magical, like fairy tale like. And then just imagine, like 1,000 years ago, the things we do today, like electricity, phones, all this kind of stuff. Like to them, that would, to what is normal to us today would be considered magic. So imagine just vastly accelerating technology and all these things. And we're going to see things that we're going to be like, how is this even possible? And in this world, I imagine every single person is going to have their own personal AI, their own personal super intelligence that's going to assist them with every aspect of their life. Basically, think of it as like a symbiotic relationship where it like levels up everything you're capable of doing. And at that point, if this exists, if this actually plays out the way that everyone is saying is going to play out, then that means if you don't have an AI like sidekick like this, then you're going to be at a massive disadvantage when it comes to everything in life. And where it becomes super like dystopia, bad outcome is imagine like only a handful of corporations or like the government, one government or just a couple of governments controlled these AIs and they controlled this superpower. So they had the super intelligence, but like the rest of the people didn't. And this is equally true for compute, which again, this is an arms race. If one single country or company controls the majority of the compute, then they still control the majority of that power. They still get to dictate how things play out. We actually need to decentralize compute and AI in order to have a non-dystopian outcome. We need it to be in everyone's hands, because if everyone controls AI, then we're all equal. We're all super powerful, super intelligent, beings in a sense, because we have this symbiotic relationship with AI. Where if just a few control it, it's like they're the few that control the guns, they're the few that control the nukes, they're the few that control all the power. And we know enough about history to know how that ends up turning out. And I believe that Akash, or the internet of compute, or something like this, is the answer to solving this problem. When you have an internet of compute as a public good that everyone could plug their small amount of compute into to create this like vast reservoir of compute that anyone could tap into when they need that extra compute, you basically democratize compute, taking away the power advantage of, maybe just a few people controlling that. And this might sound all like far-fetched sci-fi to some of you guys who maybe aren't paying attention, but look how fast AI is already advancing. It blows my mind, actually. I talked about this before, but when I first got into AI, I was doing images on Midjourney. I was like prompting like Yoda surfing. That was like one of the first prompts. I don't know why I did it. My kid said it or something. And it was like a blob. It looked like abstract, like Picasso art or something. Kind of looked green like Yoda, but it did not look like Yoda actually surfing. It was like very, very vague, very like just like almost you could tell it kind of looked like it. And I was like blown away that it even worked. Okay, fast forward 6 months, and if I did that same prompt, it looked like a picture. It looked somebody took like a Canon photo out or Canon camera out and took a photo of Yoda literally surfing. And it's like you could get these you could prompt these images that were indistinguishable from actual images. That's like 6 months worth of progress. Now we have videos. It started with Will Smith eating spaghetti. It looked horrible. And now we have cinema level videos. It's hard to distinguish that wasn't filmed with an actual camera. We have music. You can generate entire songs that like, it's hard to distinguish that these aren't real songs that somebody wrote and played. We are seeing massive advancements in AI over just like 6 month periods. It's crazy. We have already eclipsed what we used to call AGI. We used to have like, oh, here's a Turing test. Here's all these things you got to pass. And like AI already passes those things. We've already eclipsed. We keep having to move. We keep having to move the goalpost on what counts as AGI because we keep beating it. Like it or not, literally everything is about to change, and there's no way to stop this. AI will disrupt every industry on the face of the planet. That is not me being like over the top. That is like almost like under exaggerating it because I can't even comprehend how much this is going to change the fabric of society. And if this plays out the way I'm saying, and if Akash really did position itself as the internet of compute, as this compute public good layer, then I could see the total market cap, the value of Akash, well eclipsing $1 trillion. Again, that might sound utterly absurd. But if this really did play out the way I'm saying, what would that internet of compute be valued at? What would you consider it be valued at? You think it'd be less than $1 trillion? I would think it'd be actually a lot more, like 10 trillion, 20 trillion, 30 trillion, maybe even well beyond that. It'd be one of the most valuable resources on the planet. Compute will be the single most important resource in an AI-dominated world, maybe behind or maybe beside electricity. So compute and electricity, both those things are going to be integral. Now, with all that being said, here's a few ways that I could see this all playing out. For one, there's always the possibility that there's not a single internet of compute, but there's like multiple internets of compute. That it didn't really play that way out, with the internet. But maybe it's like interoperability, just like we're talking about with blockchains today. There's lots of blockchains. We have lots of these like internets of compute that we connect together into this even wider, bigger internet of compute. That's always one possibility as far as outcomes. There's also just a ton of different possibilities where like I don't foresee, we can't even imagine how this kind of plays out. It goes a completely different direction than the way that we're thinking. And none of this even makes sense in 10 years. That's also a possibility. And I'm not saying otherwise. I'm not saying this will happen. I'm not saying Akash will achieve these things, not by any means. What I'm saying is if that is right, if it does play out like that, and Akash were to become that resource, then the upside potential is absolutely unhinged and far bigger than what people are painting it to be. Okay, so let me give you my price predictions. As always, this is more for entertainment. None of this is investment advice. I have no idea what's going to actually happen, and I can't predict the future. This is just basically my fun guesses, like educated guesses on what I think could, how I think it could play out. Right now, the market cap for Akash is $744 million. And my base case for Akash would basically be a 10x from here, turning it from $744 million to $7.4 billion. That would turn every $1,000 invested into around $10,000. That seems extremely doable. I don't think anyone would in a bull market, I don't think anyone would argue with that like being a totally possible, plausible outcome. That seems not super crazy, super doable, and not like an insane thing. My bull case for Akash would be that it would gain more momentum within the AI narrative. Right now, there's a couple different plays within the AI narrative and crypto that kind of capture a lot of the attention, a lot of the mind share. If Akash could penetrate into that and gain more of that mind share, that's my bull case. If it were to do that, I think it'd go a lot higher than that 10x. In fact, in that case, I could see it going as high as $70 billion this cycle. That would be 100x from here, turning every $1,000 invested into $100,000. I'll also highlight with a lot of this hype around like made in America tokens because of Trump and all this kind of stuff. Akash is a made in America token. Maybe a lot of people don't know that, but they're based out of Austin, Texas. Akash is built here. It's founded in the US. And maybe that kind of plays into that. My ultra bullish outcome case, which is like a 1 to 3%, 1 to 5% chance of happening. It's like a Hail Mary. just fringe case outcome would be that Akash would become a cult coin, similar to like something like XRP or similar to something like Cardano. It gains like this cult following. And, these people are rabid, they're crazy, and they push this price a lot higher than it otherwise should go. And that they would kind of see it the same way I see it. They'd see this narrative of, right, this internet of compute and, the potential for that and how big it could grow. And this is alongside like this, our imaginations just continually expanding for how big AI is going to be. And kind of all these things mixed together to have this like super volatile, super insane outcome. In that case, I could see Akash this cycle going as high as $200 billion in market cap. That's just about where XRP hit this cycle. If XRP could do it, then you know what? Anything could do it. That would be a 268x from here, turning every $1,000 invested into $268,000. Again, that's a Hail Mary best case scenario outcome. That is not my base case. That's not my bull case. That's like a 1 to 3%, 1 to 5% chance. Very unlikely outcome. If everything went perfectly, that kind of thing. Make sure to sign up for my free weekly crypto newsletter. It's mostly just all my content I put out each week in an easy email so you don't miss it. But occasionally I drop some other cool stuff in there as well, including sometimes I mention things I'm buying before I ever talk about it on my YouTube channel. Also, if you really want to dive deep, make sure to check out my weekly podcast, the 1 to 1 Million podcast. I interview projects, talk about the markets, and interview various traders and experts in the crypto space. As always, again, none of this is investment advice. I could always be wrong. Akash could end up not doing well. Price can always decline. There's just tons of risks investing in crypto. You should know those risks and proceed with caution when you're investing in anything because life's full of risks. Investing is full of risks, and there really is no risk-free investment. If this video is helpful, make sure to hit that like button. If you have any questions or comments or anything to add, let me know in the comment section down below. And if you want to see more videos like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and the little bell next to it to be notified each time I release a new video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.